A project schedule is one of the most important parts of the project because it will be used by everyone involved in the project. It's a highly visible time management document that keeps the project on track and sets a date for achieving the project milestones. In this lesson, we'll discuss the process that creates the actual project schedule, the develop schedule process. The develop schedule process takes just about all the outputs from the define activities, sequence activities, estimate activity resources, and estimate activity durations processes and creates the project schedule. It determines the planned start and finish dates for the project activities based on the estimates completed in the other time management planning processes. Since it uses these estimates, it requires that all these other estimates are reviewed and revised in order to create an approved project schedule and a schedule baseline which is used for tracking the progress of the project. Developing the schedule is usually an iterative process that allows for changing resources and changing activity sequences. This process also creates the schedule baseline, which, once approved, is the document that will be used to track the project performance. There are a lot of inputs into the develop schedule process, but all of them are outputs from the previous processes, all except for one. These inputs are the schedule management plan, activity lists and attributes, project schedule network diagrams, activity resource requirements, resource calendars, activity duration estimates, the project scope statement, the risk register, the resource breakdown structure, enterprise environmental factors, and organizational process assets. The one new input into this process is project staff assignments. Project team members are a valuable resource, and the staff assignments specify which of those resources are assigned to which activity. The tools and techniques of the develop schedule process include schedule network analysis diagrams. Schedule network analysis diagrams provide a graphical view of activities and how they relate to one another within a project management plan. It identifies early and late start dates as well as the early and late finish dates for the project schedule activities using several techniques like the critical path method and resource leveling. The critical path method defines which is the longest path of activities in the schedule network diagram. If any of the activities that are on the critical path are delayed, it will delay the entire project. There are three main reasons why it's important to understand and identify the critical path. The first is to determine the project's finish date. The second is to identify how much float there is in each activity path. The activity float helps determine how much can an activity be delayed without upsetting the project deadline. And the third reason is to identify those activities with the highest risk and those that cannot slip without making the entire project late. The critical chain method is nearly identical to the critical path method, except that with the critical chain method, the activities are analyzed as aggressively as possible and a buffer is set aside for use in managing any slippage anywhere in the chain. Management within the organization is usually aware of the buffer. However, this information isn't usually divulged to the workers on the project. Sometimes it's not a good idea to let people know how much slack time they have on a project because, most times, they'll use it. Resource optimization techniques like resource leveling are used after the critical path is determined. Resource leveling is assigning resources to activities to determine what will happen to the project schedule. This tool allows the project manager to see what will happen if there aren't enough resources to complete the activity as it was first estimated. The activity and the path can then be reevaluated and the schedule can be leveled in order to account for resources being stretched over a longer period. Modeling techniques like the what-if scenario is another tool used, and it's often employed by using a Monte Carlo analysis. A Monte Carlo analysis systematically applies hundreds of different variables to the activities in a computer simulation, and it processes the best scenario for optimal scheduling results. Leads and lags in the time between each schedule activity can also be applied to the activities as part of the scheduling process as they become apparent. They're usually used to tighten up and optimize the time periods between activities in the schedule. Schedule compression is a technique that involves reviewing the schedule and schedule activities to determine if crashing or fast-tracking the schedule may be appropriate. Crashing is a term used to describe accelerating an activity and shortening its duration by crashing the resources, or in other words, adding more people or resources in an attempt to speed up the activity. Fast tracking is the process of overlapping activities that may be started at the same time, and their start times will not adversely affect each other. Automated scheduling tools can be a valuable tool in developing a schedule because this software uses math and logic to assist the project manager in defining the project tasks. There are many different project scheduling tools on the market, and they all have different price points and capability levels. One of the most commonly used automated scheduling tools is Microsoft Project. The outputs of the develop schedule process include the schedule baseline. The schedule baseline is data that supports and explains the decision-making that went into the develop schedule process, and it must be approved by the stakeholders and the sponsor. The project schedule includes every activity and their start dates, finish dates, durations, and their dependencies. The schedule also contains the overall project start and finish dates. Typically, the schedule will be in a graphic format such as a project network diagram, a Gantt chart, or a milestone chart. Schedule data is all the information that was compiled and used for describing and controlling the develop schedule process. Project calendars show the working days, shifts, or periods that are available for the work that needs to be completed. Project management plan updates are any and all updates that need to be annotated back into the project management plan. Project document updates to the activity resource requirements, activity attributes, calendars, and the risk register are necessary outputs from the develop schedule process. Project management isn't just about making a schedule. It involves the combination of activities, resources, and activity sequences that gives a project manager the greatest chance of meeting the stakeholders' requirements. It's important for the project manager to meet the expected timeframes with the least amount of risk to complete a successful project.